One of the things that I really enjoyed with our strength staff at NDSU, every time we won, nobody could wear anything national championship in the facility. In meeting rooms, at practice, in the weight room, none. Because it was all about the next level.
Welcome to Athlete Country Club, the podcast built for parents, athletes, and competitors chasing the next level. I'm your host, Marcus McMaryion, former Division I quarterback, now founder of Athlete Country Club. I started this show because, like many of you, I had to learn the recruiting process the hard way, traveling up and down the state, spending thousands trying to figure out what actually works. Each week, we break it down through two powerful segments. First, Coach Talk. This is where we sit down with college coaches, director of player personnel, recruiters to uncover exactly what they look for when offering scholarships. No fluff, just the truth from people making the decisions. Second, Athlete CEO. Here we go beyond the field, into habits, training, and mindset that build elite performance and long-term success. You'll hear from strength coaches, nutritionists, sports psychologists, and former athletes who've turned their grind into greatness in business, leadership, and life. Because being an athlete isn't just about playing the game, it's about mastering it and building your legacy beyond it. So whether you're a parent trying to navigate recruiting or an athlete ready to level up, you're in the right place. Welcome to Athlete Country Club, where we turn potential into performance and performance into purpose. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Athlete Country Club. I'm your host, Marcus McMaryion. One thing that consistently comes up when people talk about our guest today is that it's not just about the wins and the losses, but he's a process-oriented guy. I mean, before coming to Fresno State as a head football coach, he helped build one of the most dominant programs in college football history at North Dakota State, where you went from a defensive coordinator to a head coach and kind of leading a culture that became synonymous with consistency and physicality and championships. And along the way, he's coached at every level of the game. Power 5 at SC, and now back in the Valley, leading one of the most respected group of 5 programs in the country. And what stands out is not just where he's been, but how he's done it. One step at a time, one rep at a time, one standard at a time. Coach Entz, welcome to Athlete Country Club.
I appreciate it, Marcus. Thank you for having me, and excited to be here today.
Yeah, yes, sir. And I think kind of want to start the conversation off is everyone wants results, but very few people kind of fall in love with the daily work that actually creates the work that people are looking for. And I think one of the phrases you've become known for very quickly at Fresno State is that you've made it known across the nation and the Valley that Fresno State is going to be a premier developmental program. And obviously I've had the fortune and the misfortune of experiencing both a winning program and a losing program in college. And when you strip it all down, what are the processes and standards that actually separate a premier developmental program from a program that just hopes to win on Saturday?
Well, I think, trying to give our kids, experiences in all areas. I think, one of the things, when we call ourselves a premier development program, we're having touch points in numerous areas within our program. Strength and conditioning, of course, nutrition, academics, player development, preparing them for life after football. The X's and O's are a piece of it as well. Mental health, spiritual growth. There's just so many areas that I think we can continue to be a positive influence, help mentor these young men, because these are going to be, they're going to be the husbands, the dads, they're going to be the community members, the church members, the business owners for the future. And so can football be, the conduit? Can football be the vehicle for them to get some of these life skills, but at the same time play at a high level?
Yeah, 100%. And in your program, when you hear the phrase trust the process, I feel like it's a cliche that kind of gets thrown around sometimes. But what is trust in the process? What does that actually look like inside your program on a random Tuesday in the middle of the off season?
Right. Well, I think consistency is a lot of things. To me, if you have an effective process, that's one of the characteristics of a process. Is there's consistency, there's belief in all areas, ancillary, tertiary within your program about what you're doing. Every support personnel, every director, every player in our program understands that it's a Tuesday in January. They know exactly what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish today. I don't believe in chaos. Consistency beats chaos every time. And so to be a premier developmental program, to be a process-oriented team, I think we do a great job It takes a long time. It takes a little bit longer than maybe just doing it on a daily basis. But we put a ton of time into creating a calendar, creating a plan for the development, for how our program is going to continue to operate. And I think there's value there. I think our players, I'm going through end of the season meetings right now, and I bet I've only gone through maybe half the team right now, but I bet I've heard it 20 times, is, Coach, the consistency, the organization on how we go about our business enables us to be more effective. It gives us a chance to be prepared. It gives us a chance to be our best.
Yeah. And I mean, what's a small, overlooked habit you've seen consistently separate winning programs from the average ones?
I think just trying to take the shortcuts and a willingness to do the work. One of the things that I sit in my office when I meet with recruits is, if you love football and you're not trying to avoid the work, or you're not trying to avoid development, then this is where you need to be. If you enjoy football, or you like the things that football provides to you, this probably isn't where you want to be. This is still a blue collar program. This is a program that's has a history of being about sweat equity. And I appreciate that. It's part of the reason why I was excited to be here, because I knew we could recruit the right type of people. And so I think anytime you want to be a process-driven team, or you want to get focused on, being the best version of yourself, you can't avoid the work. We aren't going to be able to go get the 5- and 4-star ready-made players. So we have to be willing to develop our players and to create our depth internally.
Yeah, no, and I feel like that's a perfect segue into kind of just the next question of just, we live in such an instant gratification kind of microwave kind of society, to where really everything is delayed gratification. Anything that's worthwhile, there's going to be some kind of delay aspect to it. And how do you teach, the young athletes in your program to stay committed to the process when they're not seeing those immediate results?
Well, I think part of it is, and this leads into it, the things we talk about are just trying to win on a daily basis and go 1-0 every day, stack good days. Well, if you can stack good days, you're going to see minor victories. You're going to see subtle changes. Let's use the weight room, for instance. All of a sudden, I'm gaining weight. I'm getting stronger. Well, let's celebrate those wins. Or, hey, my body comp is improving from a nutritional standpoint. Let's celebrate those wins. My grades are going up. Let's celebrate those wins. It's not, you can't chase results and chase the destination of game day. You have to make sure that you make you compartmentalize, you make everything important about how you go about your business. And I think our kids have appreciated that, and they know that we're stressing, all the important things. And now that we've gone through it a year and had some subtle success, I think there's even greater willingness to buy into, hey, this recipe of work plus a great plan plus being more prepared than our opponent. It does work, and complementary football is a positive thing. That's a really good term right now in our program.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like a lot of high school athletes think they're ready for college football until they actually experience it, and you kind of realize the real beast of the nature, like what you're actually getting into. Like, what are some of the biggest differences in daily expectations between a high school program and a college program?
That's another conversation I have with every recruit, especially as they commit or they're on the verge of committing, or post-commitment, just to make sure that they're fully aware. And I usually say this around the parents as well, but I think there's 3 or 4 things that are critical. One, the speed of the game is going to be elevated. You may play at the highest level of high school football, but again, at the same time, remember, a lot of times high school football, 99% of it is based on who lives in the district. Right? Coaches seldom, very few can go out there and recruit, retain, and develop guys. And so you have what you have. At this level, we're taking all the best players from the high school level and putting them on an all-star team, if you will. And then you throw into it, there's people that are 23, 24 years old that are still playing college football. And so the reaction time, the processing time has been eliminated. The speed of the game has been elevated. And I think a lot of times kids just kind of get blown away by that. Even before that happens, there's a new language that needs to be learned. That's a playbook. That's a scheme. That's a structure, coaching points, technique, fundamentals. So all of a sudden, Their world is they thought they knew everything about route running and all this 7-on-7 world or this 5-on-5 world they live in. And then they realize, well, that's not real football. That's just parts of football. Now we got to put it all together. You've just learned skills. Now you got to learn a job. And then the third one that I think is the most unique one is the physical demands of practice. And I'm not talking about, a lot of guys, when they hear physical, they think this is part of it, but it's the conditioning. It's the running from point A to point B. It's all of a sudden, hey, I was an elite player at the high school level, but I never did special teams. Well, guess what? At Fresno State, you're involved. Coach Baxter has you lined up, ready to go. You're drilling special teams, and they don't realize that how much work, how much repetition we get in a 2-hour block. There is no wasted time. Point A to point B, drills need to be set up. We need to move quickly because I believe in an efficient practice. I don't want to ever have to condition our team. I want our practice to be our conditioning.
Yeah, and I felt like that was a huge wake-up call for me, just the amount of planning and systemized approach, and even just seeing a breakdown. I think it would blow a lot of high school athletes' mind of seeing how structured and detailed every single play call is structured before the practice even happens. It's not, hey, let's go ask the offense coordinator, like, what are you thinking of? And he sits there and goes, maybe we should run this. Like, no, there's all that's eliminated, all the buffer time, everything is just so efficient. And I think more talking to maybe the high school parents or the high school coaches here. I mean, if you could sit down with every high school coach, what's one thing you'd ask them to emphasize more to prepare high school kids for the next level?
Fundamentals. And that fits us because we're a fundamental based football team. That's our philosophy. We're going to be really good at the most basic elements of the game: blocking, tackling, getting off blocks, running, catching. We want to be great at simple. And sometimes, again, I'm going to throw myself, even as a young coach, I thought more scheme was better. Bigger playbook meant more answers. No, it just means more confusion at times. And so how can we streamline this learning and give them a foundation so they can be successful? There's going to be times in a game where, offensive A, B, or C, they're going to throw something new at you. Well, your fundamentals are going to get you through the moment until you get them all over to the sideline and we can make appropriate adjustments. Your fundamentals, your technique, those are the answers. Those are the solutions you have to get through adversity at times. If you teach a sound, fundamental-based football program, I think, sometimes we get so enamored with the volume of plays we have, the overage of plays is what I call it, both offensively and defensively. We practice things we don't use, or we have one-offs of fundamentals. But then why do we have it in our playbook? If the only time we use a technique is on that one call, then it's a waste. We should eliminate it, right? We want same as, we want to simplify, we want multiple simplicity within our system.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting. You just kind of sparked a thought. I was just having a conversation with one of my former teammates at Fresno State, Michael Walker, who's with the Jets now. He's going into his 7th year in the NFL, and he was saying that one of the coaches was telling him, if you're in the NFL, you essentially have your PhD in football. And I was like, man, that's got to be a goal that everyone's striving to in some sense. When you come in as a freshman, you can't be your first year into your doctorate program and expect to know as much as someone who's in their 4th or 5th year is already in their residency. And I think that's kind of the best way to kind of explain that. And I mean, you've kind of transitioned from North Dakota State. I mean, winning once is hard. I mean, winning consistently over years is something that's entirely different. I mean, like, what were the biggest leadership lessons you learned during your time at North Dakota State, especially transitioning from a DC to a head coach?
Well, I think some of the things that I thought were critical, being fully transparent with your players, making sure they knew exactly what you wanted, being really smart in how you communicate with them. If you want a 6-inch step, then make sure you're stressing a 6-inch step and not saying, around a 6-inch step. And that's just kind of a vague example, but that's what I'm getting at. You have to be really detailed in this day of age, and even in this world, like you called it, a microwave world or a world made up of 30-second sound bites. You got their attention for a small amount of time. You better have explicit coaching points at every point. I think kids want to be organized, and that was something that I realized at North Dakota State. We never practiced longer than 2 hours, very similar to Fresno State, and we're going to make every minute count. But to do that, you have to be really organized on the front end of it. Your staff, your assistants, your equipment personnel, your medical personnel, the strength personnel. So from a communication standpoint, I needed to grow to make sure that everyone had the details necessary. And then I think just holding kids to a standard. That's still something that we continually talk about here is what does it look like to be a Bulldog? And that's the minimum. That's then you are what you tolerate. And we continually try to push the envelope, continue to elevate that standard of, our operating procedures and eliminating being late, eliminating missing things, and the little things, the small details, at the end of the day become huge issues. When you want to convert a 4th and 1, or you want to make a big catch on 3rd and 10.
Yeah, no, 100%. And obviously this is kind of more of a vague question, but as you've experienced kind of the pinnacle of winning a championship in college football at the highest level towards, how do championship programs handle success differently than teams that are still chasing it?
Well, I think I'm going to say that I think it's harder once you get there to stay there. I think when you're on the rise and elevating your game, sometimes you can do that in the dark and nobody sees it. You can sneak up on people because they don't anticipate it. Let's use an example, 2025 Indiana Hoosiers, right? Kind of came out of nowhere, but 2026 even more impressive because everyone knew who they were now, right? They were a good program and everyone had them circled on their calendar. I've had a number of conversations with our team right now. Had a team meeting last Friday, and we talked about it. Hey, the Bulldogs aren't sneaking up on anybody anymore, right? Guess what? Boise State's ready for us now, right? We woke them up, all right? And so we have to be prepared. Our work ethic, our attention to detail has to match it, has to exceed where we've been. And so that's where I think, once you've gotten to that pinnacle, it's very difficult because the other things that start to sneak into your program is ego, complacency, and entitlement. Well, Coach, I was really good last year. Or, well, I did this, so why do I need to practice hard? Well, Coach, I played a lot last year. I can back off in the spring, right? But no, now we need to tighten the screws and we got to go even more. One of the things that I really enjoyed with our strength staff at NDSU, every time we won, nobody could wear anything national championship in the facility. In meeting rooms, on practice, in the weight room, none, right? Because it was all about the next one. And so we've kind of incorporated that here. No bowl gear in the weight room, no bowl gear in the facility. You can wear it out on a date. You can wear it, when you go to the grocery store, that's fine. But it's all about the next one. The 2025 team was tremendous. I love the young men that were on that team. But now we need to give the 2026 team an opportunity to go have great success themselves. We can't live in the past. We got to move forward.
Yeah, and kind of moving forward into that 2026 team, obviously that comes with the transfer portal and signing days coming up, and you're establishing kind of that new roster. And just when you're evaluating a young player, I mean, I've always kind of had a understanding that, like, hey, film is going to show your talent, but your character is going to show your longevity and how productive you're actually going to be once you get there. And when you're evaluating a high school or a junior college player or portal player, like, what traits jump out before you ever turn the tape on?
You want just, say you're just getting to meet someone, their ability to hold conversation. I still think a handshake goes a long ways. And just how do they operate around you? Do they introduce their parents? Finding out, background information. Are they a captain? Are they a captain in other sports? Do they play other sports? What do they do when they're not playing football or they're not in the weight room? What's their attendance like at school in the weight room? And so we're trying to peel back all the layers. And you said it right, Mark. Character has to be at a premium, especially for a developmental program, because in my opinion, if you recruit high character kids who have athleticism, there's a ceiling that we don't know where it ends. Because what's one characteristic of high character individuals? They're intrinsically motivated and they're self-starters. So their greatest opponent is themselves. They're always trying to find the best version of themselves. They compete with themselves on a daily basis. And I want to be surrounded by people that want to see daily improvement. They want to see continued success. And so I think if you can, weed through the recruiting process a little bit, not go down deep rabbit holes, but get that information, get in front of coaches, get in front of teachers, get in front of professors, whatever it might be, and really peel back the layers of who they are. You're going to have a good insight on, are they going to fit in the program? And then what you see on film will allow them to actually participate in the program.
Yeah, when I feel like that's it's a common reoccurring thing that I want to just drill into everyone who's listening, that it's, if a coach is on campus, whether it's the head coach, a position coach, area coach, they know you could play football at that point. I feel like there's so many more layers that you guys are looking to peel back. Like, if you guys are on campus, obviously you can play football. That's the easy part. Like, hey, can you actually handle the eyes and the attention and you being in the spotlight, and can you handle the demand of going to class and doing everything that has to do with college football? And I think for you, I mean, just what's one thing that when you see an athlete, this kid can make it in our program?
I think, are you talking more intangibles versus measurables?
Yeah, intentional, more off the field, because the film is film, and guys could do things. But as far as when you're meeting him in person, you kind of mentioned the handshakes and tangibles. But maybe if you're evaluating him at his own practice, in a practice environment.
Competitiveness, high effort. Again, those are, you talk about, things that don't require talent. I don't want to coach effort. I want to coach the fundamentals. I want to coach the bigger picture. I do not want to have to coach effort. And so when I go to a practice, we're putting on film. Those are the things we're looking for. And that's why one of the questions I ask when I first meet an individual and we're starting to start the process of recruiting, I always want to know, what game did they play the best in, and who was the best team they played. And so now I want to see, how does that compare to what their coach says? Because if the coach says a different game, then I start to wonder. But I also want to see how they play against, like, the best competition they play. Do they elevate their game, or do they just disappear in the game? And so getting that understanding of, like I usually have a pretty good idea who the best talent they play is, right? But I want to hear what they think, right? Are they saying it's just another game that I played well in, or are they trying to, steer me right and give me some honest feedback?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think obviously that kind of leads to, you just talked about Indiana, and everyone's kind of surprised on what they were able to do in this past year. And I mean, the game, it isn't just changing. I think it's being rebuilt in real time. And I think people from the outside looking in, you can argue that this is your first season at Fresno State at the FBS level. But the reality is, the entire landscape has been flipped on its head. How do you approach leading a program when everyone is learning in this new era?
Well, I think one, as the game hasn't necessarily changed very much, but the landscape around it has changed dramatically. I think the things that you need to do, and this would be my advice to, it doesn't matter if it's a high school coach or a college coach, is make sure you lean into who you want to be. In this world of, transfer portal, rev share, distractions, social media, all that, you have to avoid knee-jerk reactions. And it's so easy because, unfortunately, I think some players are doing a knee-jerk, I'm going in the portal, and then all of a sudden realize the grass isn't always greener, or knee-jerk, somebody else values me more. Well, that's what they're saying. That doesn't necessarily mean that's accurate. And so, if you're a coach, if you're an assistant coach, a coordinator, a head coach, just no knee-jerk reactions. Lean into who you really want to be. What is your philosophy? Are you a schematic-based program? Are you a fundamental-based program? Continue to lean into those things, and I think the right people will show up. And again, making some knee-jerk reactions and trying to change who you are to fit, the ever change. You'll never get where you want to be. There has to be some consistency in your operation.
Yeah, no, and kind of talk a little bit about just, how has roster management changed with the transfer portal and NIL and just year-to-year movement?
Right. Well, it's become a little bit, probably mimics professional sports in some way. It's year to year. It's season to season, which is frustrating because I think we're building a really good college football. We're continuing to build a really good college football program here. Teams get beat, programs don't. And that's what we want to be. We want to create a really good program. But it gets harder because you're having to recruit and retain your current roster all the time. And so we tried to get ahead of that. We started conversations with our veterans who were returning prior to our last regular season game. We utilized our winter camp before our bowl as a great opportunity to sit down, and our director of player personnel, Jake Rasmussen, did a tremendous job. One of the things that I got, Marcus, is I stay arm's length away from all those conversations. I don't get into the dollars and cents with our players. I know what's going on, but I don't talk about that because when they come in here, I want to be able to demand execution, effort. I want to demand that they live up to the standards. And I do not want that to be clouded by a dollar sign somewhere. And someone go, well, you're letting him do this because he makes this and I don't, and vice versa. No, I don't know. I don't care. If you wear the red and white, you're going to live by the same standard. We're going to operate. This is what it takes to be part of this program. But going back to your question, I kind of got off on a tangent there. Again, measuring your depth, measuring the holes in your roster, trying to be proactive. Years ago, you used to always talk about, from a recruiting standpoint, you wanted to replace your juniors, right? That was my mentality pre-2019, 2020. Replace the juniors. That way, then the freshmen were redshirt freshmen when they were seniors, and then by their redshirt freshman year, maybe they're able to help. And you saw a cycle of development. I think anymore, you got to start thinking about replacing your sophomores, because by the time they start having great success at a place like Fresno State, now I'm competing to keep them, right? Is there a Power Four that's offering a better opportunity somewhere or a bigger payday? Well, I need to have those players ready to replace internally if I'm going to develop them much faster now.
Yeah, no, and I would go on a limb. You're probably one of the most analytical coaches I've been around as far as just measuring things in a good way, though, because I feel like I've seen coaches who go to the extreme and they don't have the personable side and able to talk and able to communicate, and you do such a good job at both of them. I mean, what are some things that Fresno State's actively measuring to measure their success in the off season?
Of course, we go through. Are you talking about just our team's success?
Just your metrics as far as some of the GPS stuff and something that maybe a high school kid's not introduced to, but you guys are measuring all sorts of metrics as far as what your progression looks like.
Well, we've gone back through and kind of looked at our season. We GPS every single practice. During fall camp has tremendous value. Because we want to make sure that we present a situation where we avoid the soft tissue injuries. I remember double days, lack of that information. You just kept going. The body kept, trying to get back to as close to healthy as possible. Now we have more real life numbers, and now we have a GPS system it's real time. And so we're able to, in a course of a practice, measure dozens of parameters. Long speed or long distance speed, that's considered 17 miles an hour. If they hit X number, we pull them out of practice. Decelerations, which measures change in directions. You hit an X number, corners are the ones that I get nervous about. You hit a certain number, I'm pulling you out of practice because I want to get you to the next day, right? I want to get you to an off day where we can recover. Total volume, how many yards covered? Again, it's amazing the number of our special teams players that elevate. What's the load per day, right? And again, there's certain days of the week we want to have peak load. We want to have build-up load. We also have practices that are called unload days, where we're out there in helmets and shoulder pads. But we have created a program or a practice plan where it's red zone, it's short yardage, it's quick game. We're not pushing the ball down the field. We're not covering kicks. And so we're really backing all that yardage off our legs. And so we're utilizing it as a mental practice and minimizing the physical impact of that practice. Science shows us that if we can find a way to get 2 off days or like 2 off days a week, we can avoid a lot of these soft tissue injuries. And that's one thing that Martin and our staff have provided. I got a 3-ring binder that's to my right here, that's 2 inches thick, that goes through all of our injuries this year. Those are things we want to go back and analyze. We want to go back and look at some GPS numbers to make sure positionally, do we have the right numbers and the right the right parameters to avoid injury. We'll utilize, bar metrics in the weight room. Last off season was putting on size. This off season is developing explosiveness and twitchiness. And so now we want to measure bar speed. And so we've purchased some information or purchased the software that will help us measure bar speed and explosiveness. There is a science behind everything. There's a science behind recruiting. There's a science behind the transfer portal. I mean, we did a study here last year. To go get a kid out of the portal is 1.8 times more expensive to tend to develop them and to keep them internally, right? Well, then if you're a place like Fresno State, you fight like heck to keep them here and show them that this is the right place and that you have relationships. This place is transformational, helping you develop. And so I am a little bit of a numbers geek. I like that part of it, but I still think you have to have the feel side of it too. Just because the numbers say go forward on fourth down, you also have to bring in what's the flow of the game, what's the temperature of the game, what is the vibe going on right now, if it's the right move.
Yeah, no, 100%. Obviously, there's so many things as far as the bar metrics, the GPS, and all the analytical stuff that's going on. And I think something that really was an eye-opening experience for me when I was obviously talking to quarterback specifically, when I came from high school to Division I level, is the metrics and everything that was being tracked on every single practice. As far as, can you kind of talk about that? I mean, the amount of throws you made, what was your completion rate, what was your footwork, like so many different things. So kind of talk about like how many things are being measured on a day-to-day that are under a microscope just in practice.
Right. Well, I think, each side of the football has a number of different things. I know defensively, you talk about the number of low. Every rep has to be watched. So you're determining, was there a lack of effort on a play? Was there a knockback tackle? Was it a TFL? Was it a high quality rep where it could be one that can be used to teach in the future? Offensively, you're exactly right. The numbers and the analytics I want, our quarterback. After every throw, our assistant quarterback coach goes up to that quarterback and says, "Why'd you throw it there?" We write it down, right? So when we go back and watch the film, we put the comment with the film. Hey, this is why you said. Okay, does it match up? Is the information matching what you saw on the field? What's your pass completion percentage against man? What's it against pressure? What's it against zone? Right? What is our run game consistency against 8-man box for 7-man spacing? I mean, there is and those are things. Now we're going back and we do that fall camp, and now postseason, the month of February is where I get an opportunity to sit in and watch these things, look at these numbers, and say, hey, why did we only average X number of yards on a kickoff return? Let's find out. All right, we have the numbers here, right? Analytics now is telling us maybe we should just fair catch, right? And avoid the turnover potential. Is the juice worth the squeeze right now? And that's what, again, you're trying to put yourself in situations, minimize mistakes, minimize errors, and allow yourself to have an opportunity to win games at the end.
Yeah, no, and obviously you starting your journey in coaching, it's been a long journey to get to the position you're in as a head coach. Tons of years of football, tons of experience and learning different things. I mean, looking back on your coaching history, in what ways were you intentionally preparing yourself to become a head coach even before the opportunity existed?
Right. I think I've always been an elite note taker, and every clinic, every meeting, every opportunity to do professional development, I was always constantly writing things down, trying to, take as much information as I can, create kind of my book, create a log of where things are. I still have probably, half dozen, spirals from my early years that occasionally I'll pull out and blow the dust off and be like, man, what was happening in 1996 is coming back in 2026 right now, right? Football it's all cyclical. It goes around, right? Odd front, even front, cover 4, cover 2, cover 3, right? We just keep reusing stuff, and it trends, and all of a sudden what was old becomes new. And I think as long as you keep learning and having a growth mindset, I think that's the biggest part of being a head football coach. But again, I think just willingness to, I love to read. I don't do it enough, but I love to take notes and try to find ways of being a better, or being more organized, but also being a better leader too.
Yeah, and I feel like I've had a handful of guys that were teammates of mine that were young, obviously a little bit younger, probably in their mid-20s right now, that are coaching. Maybe they're a position coach at the time at a different school right now. But I mean, what skills does a head coach need that coordinators and position coaches often don't realize until they're in the seat?
Well, I think we talked just briefly about it a few minutes ago, just how the landscape has changed. Unfortunately, this position's becoming more CEO than it is X and O. And again, I try to do a good job of balancing, making sure that the organization, the program is moving forward with our scheduling and fundraising and operating things that we necessarily need to have, but also being able to be intentional with sitting in with the offense, sitting in with the defense, making sure that I see the game and give them my insight all week long to help them with their game planning. Or, hey, let's come up. What is the plan? How are we going to have success this week? And then we need to make sure that we're conveying that message to our football team. But there's become a lot of other things on a head coach's plate that sometimes you don't necessarily realize until you get in the chair.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest advantages in sports, I mean, and just in life in general, I mean, it's just the proximity to people who have already walked the road that you want to walk. I mean, just like, how important has mentorship been in your own coaching journey, and who were the voices that helped shape your leadership style today?
Well, I think there's a handful of guys. Bob Nielsen. Well, I'm going to start way back. Richard Miller was my head high school coach. Still have contact with him on a weekly basis, especially in season. We text a lot. He's been to national championship games. He's befriended my wife now. Tremendous man. I've always been, my mom and dad would always say, I've always was kind of a gym rat. I was the last one out, last one to leave. Love hanging out with coaches. Love listening to coach talk, coach speak. Since high school, since I was little. My head college coach, Bob Nielsen, tremendously organized, tremendously professional individual. Tuesday of this week, I had a 45-minute conversation with him, and we're just catching up. I still have a valuable relationship with him, bounce a lot of ideas off him. Just retired a year ago, one of the winningest coaches, and it was one of the most winning coaches in active NCAA football here of late. Won a couple national championships himself, and was just so impactful. How he operated, how he approached the game, his composure, his ability to relate. It stuck with me. It was very. Other names Coach Sawyer, the head football coach at Winona State, was there for 10 years, was defensive coordinator there. Really allowed me to kind of grow into my own. Gabe started to give me more experiences, driving me towards being a head football coach. Just sitting in on these meetings, being on fundraising, being on special project committees, all that stuff has value. And then, of course, Chris Kleiman, who I was with at North Dakota State, he too gave me a ton of access and involvement in roster management. Now, this was pre-rev share, but a ton of experience with our booster club, experience with camps, with budgeting, all that different stuff. I mean, it all adds up. Now, it's all, it's different when you're not the guy making the call, but it was all valuable experience. And to this day, he's still a huge resource for me. I know he just retired, but we continue to stay in touch. And then there's one assistant coach, Marcus, that I have to bring up, and that's Randy Hedberg. Randy was a head coach briefly. He was the quarterback coach at NDSU. But I tell you what, Randy, he made people around him better. He unbelievable listener, and had something when you asked him, what do you think, Randy? I mean, there was valuable things that always came out, and just so impressed with how he has 4 or 5 players now, quarterbacks that are in the NFL. Just his ability to communicate and to impact people positively. So if I could say that I had 4 or 5 guys on my Mount Rushmore of coaching, those would be it.
Yeah, no, and I think it's just so important to kind of have those strong relationships and developing. I mean, just not just only football, but I feel like a lot of those guys that you mentioned, it's funny that a lot of the characteristics I felt like that you have respect and admiration for them were is because they helped you develop outside of football. And it wasn't just the X's and O's of the game that they're having an impact. And I think like if you were designing the perfect environment, I mean, for a young athlete, I mean, what kind of mentors and influences would you want around them every day?
Well, you want men of integrity, right? Again, and I think that's what we've hired here. We've put together a tremendous staff. We have great experience. We have veteran coaches. We have young coaches, high energy, high thinkers, very self-motivated coaches, family men. So I think that's critical when you develop a staff. And if I could put together the perfect environment, I would want coaches with families and that those coaches want to be transformational. I want our players to be around our coaches' families because we're also giving them life skills that go way beyond football. I want an environment of learning, of growth mindset where, man, every meeting I need to be taking notes because there's going to be something that's impactful for me. I don't want to waste time. The 2 most important things for our student athletes, time and money. Let's not waste them then. All right, let's get them here. Let's have a plan. Let's execute it. And once the plan's done, let's critique it to make sure that it's even better the next time around, rather than just rinse and repeat. And then a level of transparency that I think our young men need to know that when they walk into the head football coach's office, they walk into their coach's office, that it's going to be a situation where there's honesty and there's respect. And I think if we have those things, that will be tremendous. And again, honesty's tough these days because most people, when they hear the honest, it's negative. Well, no, you're making it negative. It's just the truth, right? If the truth hurts, then it's probably real. But we got to operate in that world. We got to be honest with them. We got to give them great feedback to continue to challenge them in the areas that they're deficient.
Yeah, and you kind of talked about obviously creating that environment while they're athletes, while they're on campus. And you did say that, I mean, football's eventually going to end. I mean, the scoreboard eventually fades. I mean, the impact doesn't. And I feel like that's the environment culture that you are creating at Fresno State. And I mean, like, how do you define success for a player who may never play a down of professional football?
Right. I want to create a valued experience for every single person that's part of this program. And what does that look like? That means that you probably met your best friends, and some of them you don't know right now. I tell every recruit that. There's guys that are in this locker room right now that might be in your wedding someday that you haven't even met. But that's the power of a football locker room and the greatest team sport on earth. The second thing, we're going to give you every advantage, every opportunity to get your education and walk across that stage with that parchment paper has value. Numbers show that it's going to double, if not triple, your earnings throughout the rest of your life. That's a big time deal, right? So all of a sudden, I might have earned $1 million. Now I'm talking $3 million. I'll take it for 4 years of studying and utilizing the resources that we have. And then the last piece is we're going to win some games. We're going to do it the right way. And so if we can provide everyone with those 3 areas, I think then they're going to walk out of here champions, regardless if we win a Pac-12 or not. They're going to have championship behavior. They're going to have championship life skills that are going to be required to be successful.
Right. Yeah. No. And I feel like for you, I mean, obviously you've coached enough now to where you've probably experienced this a handful of times to where when former players call you years later, I mean, what do you hope they're thanking you for?
I'll tell you this, Marcus. Seldom do we ever talk about football. We don't talk about games. We talk about experiences. We talk about bus trips, flights. We talk about, remember this. Remember when we did this, coach. Remember when we called you really late at night and woke you up because we were at the bar too late. I mean, that's the stuff. Like, that tells me that it was a valued experience. And so if in the beginning we have great respect for each other and transparency, that's tremendous. But at the end of it, if we can say that we're friends, I'm okay with that. I think that's a win for both of us. So one of the greatest compliments I ever got, Marcus, was after, I can't remember if it was a 2021 national championship, 2022, one of those 2 years. A young man by the name of Michael Tutsi, who now coaches at Marion University in Indiana, he was at the press conference and said, if I could do this whole experience all over again, I would. And to me, that was the biggest win I've ever had, right? That, someone wants to come back and go through all the work and all the sweat and all the adversity, but I would do it all over again if I could. That's all I need to hear.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a long, grueling process. I mean, winning, losing, everything about college football, it's going to take all of you, and it's definitely a sense of your identity that needs to be in it. Obviously, football's not, who you are, it's what you do, but at the end of the day, it needs to be a really big part of you to have success. And Coach, you've built, programs, developed leaders, and now you're shaping the future of Fresno State football in a completely new era of the game. But just I always like to end, if for whatever reason I forgot to hit record and this entire thing just got erased. If there's a high school athlete out there that's listening right now whose dreams are playing in college football, what's maybe one or two process-driven habits they can start tomorrow or today that would separate them 5 years from now?
I think the most underappreciated supplement that's out there is sleep. We've become a society of being on my phone, staying up late, living off of energy drinks. Sleep. It's free. That's what's great about it too. Everyone wants to train. Everyone wants to do all these things, acceleration, cheetah club, 7-on-7, lifting, all that. But we don't sleep. That's where growth happens. That's where your body repairs itself. So get that sleep. Make time for 8 to 10 hours of sleep and watch yourself not only on the field or the court or whatever, but in the classroom as well. Watch yourself continue relationship wise. You're going to be set up so much better. And that's the area that we continually educate our players in. Don't be night owls. Get your work done during the day so you can get your rest at night, so you're ready to go tomorrow again. So that would be one habit that I would talk about. I think the other one that I would talk about is in this world where everyone wants to continually have a trainer or this or do extra, make sure you're getting a benefit from this extra training, right? That you're improving. Don't do this extra stuff and then your performance declines, right? So what is the value behind it, right? Are you doing cone drills or are you learning how to be a receiver, right? Are you doing cone drills or are you learning how to be a DB, right? Because at some point, all this combine stuff goes away and you have to be the guy between the white lines that can make plays, right? So develop skills, but remember there's still a job that's part of it. And the job is playing football 11 on 11, the physical part of it, that's what matters to coaches. It's not all the work that you do in t-shirts and shorts and 7-on-7. It's the real football. That's what we're evaluating.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about sleep as the first thing. Actually, I just ended up getting an Oura ring to track my sleep. So I started doing that just recently. So it's something I'm obsessing about. But honestly, I feel like what kicked it off is you talk about everything cyclical and developmental stage. I'm looking at my kids right now. My oldest is 4, and I'm like, man, he goes to sleep at 8 and wakes up at 8 consistently. I'm like, man, if he's such in a brain developmental stage and he's getting 12 hours of sleep, I'm like, man, I got to get at least 8 or 9, So
exactly.
So I think that was a really big wake up call for me as far as the sleep. I'm like, man, if this is such a important time of his life and sleep is that important, maybe I should actually make this of something of importance for myself as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's something we continue, we call it championship habits, when sleep, nutrition, hydration, decision-making, the people you hang out with, all those habits impact who you're going to be, and you're trying to maximize yourself.
Yeah, no, well, Coach Entz, this was loads of information. One of those podcast, honestly, that I'm going to have to go back and listen to, just because it was kind of just gym after gym after gym. I'm like, man, I was trying to keep the conversation going. I'm trying to listen to exactly what you said. But
Right. Well, I hope it worked out well for you. I appreciate the opportunity.
No, it was awesome, Coach Entz, and I appreciate you not just leading the football program of the alma mater I played for as well, but for building a standard of excellence and demanding that extends, just beyond the football field. So I truly do appreciate everything.
Well, I appreciate you. You're a big element to this program, and shoot, I see your picture up on the wall every day here, and we have tremendous alumni here at Fresno State, and they're the foundation of this program, and that's why we are who we are. And so every day I get to come to the office, and we're striving to make it even better than it ever was before. And it's a fun process. We got great people. Central Valley's been tremendous.
Yep. Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you guys for listening. Until next time, this Athlete Country Club. God bless.